Sir, we're detecting something impossible. Communications Officer Vex's four eyes widened as she stared at her display. Her voice trembled despite 3 decades of military service. Admiral Thex of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his command throne, his towering 8-foot frame casting shadows across the bridge of the dreadnought Conquest's edge. Around him, 300 warships hung in the void like predatory fish, ready to devour another primitive world. Define impossible, Officer Vex. A single ship just jumped into our formation, human design. It's broadcasting on all frequencies. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Humans. Those barely evolved primates who still used chemical rockets and fought with metal projectiles. The same species the Empire had dismissed as too primitive to conquer, too worthless to enslave. Put it on screen, Thex commanded. The main display flickered to life, showing a vessel that defied everything the Empire knew about human technology. It wasn't the crude, boxy design of human ships they'd observed from. Their surveillance drones. This craft moved like liquid metal, its hull flowing and shifting as if alive. Strange energy patterns danced across its surface like aurora on a planetary atmosphere. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Prometheus. A voice crackled through the communication system. The tone was calm, almost casual, as if discussing the weather rather than facing down an entire battle fleet. You have entered human space with hostile intent. You have 30 seconds to withdraw, or we will consider this an act of war. Laughter erupted across the Zephyrian bridge. Thex himself couldn't suppress a chuckle. One ship. One primitive human. Ship addressing the might of 300 Imperial vessels. Response, Admiral? Asked his weapons officer. Thex straightened his dress uniform and activated the communication array. Human vessel. I am Admiral Thex of the Zephyrian Empire. You face the combined might of Fleet Omega-7. Stand down immediately, and we may allow your species to serve as laborers rather than food. The response came without hesitation. 30 seconds have elapsed, Admiral. You chose poorly. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for centuries to come, assuming anyone survived to tell the tale. The human ship simply disappeared, not in a flash of light or burst of energy like their jump drives. It didn't phase out of existence like ships entering hyperspace. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't, as if reality had simply forgotten it existed. Where did it go? Thex demanded. Unknown, sir. No energy signature, no sensor trace, no... The first explosion cut her off. The destroyer, void render, simply ceased to exist. No warning, no incoming missile detected, no energy beam. The massive warship was there, then it was expanding plasma and debris. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Find that human vessel. But there was nothing to find. The Prometheus remained invisible to every sensor, every scanner, every detection system the Empire had developed over millennia of conquest. The second ship died as mysteriously as the first. Then a third. A fourth. Sir, whatever's hitting us, it's ignoring our shields completely. It's like our defenses aren't even there. Thex watched in growing horror as his fleet died around him. Ships that had conquered star systems, vessels that had burned worlds were being picked off like training targets. And still, they couldn't see their attacker. All ships, random jump patterns, scatter formation. It didn't matter. The killing continued with methodical precision. Each death came without warning, without defense, without hope. As the 100th ship died in silent fire, Admiral Thex realized he was no longer commanding a fleet. He was watching an execution. Chapter 2. The Human Question. 6 hours earlier, in a classified facility buried 3 miles beneath the Colorado Rockies, Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at data that shouldn't exist. Run the simulation again, she commanded, though she'd already run it 47 times. The result never changed. Her assistant, Dr. Marcus Webb, rubbed his tired eyes. They'd been at this for 18 straight hours. Elena, the math is solid. The prototype works exactly as designed. Maybe too well. The Prometheus sat in the underground, hangar like a sleeping predator. To most observers, it looked wrong somehow. The hull seemed to shift and flow even when stationary. Lights bent strangely around its edges. The air itself felt different in its presence. "Remind me again why we built this thing," Elena muttered, scrolling through endless columns of test data. "Because Admiral Harrison said humanity needed an edge," Marcus replied. "Because first contact protocols assume we'll eventually meet hostile species. Because someone had to ask what if and be prepared for the worst-case scenario." Elena nodded absently. 5 years ago, the breakthrough had changed everything. Humanity's first successful faster-than-light engine hadn't just broken the light barrier. It had torn holes in the fabric of space-time itself. The physics involved were so far beyond current understanding that even the inventors couldn't fully explain how it worked. But they'd pressed forward anyway. Because that's what humans did. They took impossible things and made them possible through sheer bloody-minded determination. The Prometheus represented the culmination of that effort. Not just a ship, but a complete reimagining of what space warfare could be. Dimensional phasing technology that could shift the vessel into parallel space. Quantum weaponry that could strike targets without regard for conventional defenses. AI. Systems that bordered on the truly alien. "Dr. Vasquez," a new voice interrupted her thoughts. Admiral Patricia Harrison strode into the laboratory, her expression grim. "We have a situation." Elena looked up from her data. Admiral Harrison never visited the facility unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. "What kind of situation?" "The kind where 300 alien warships just appeared at the edge of the solar system." Harrison activated a holographic display showing the outer system. Red dots marked the positions of ships that dwarfed anything in Earth's Navy. "They're moving toward Earth. Arrival time, 14 hours. The laboratory fell silent except for the hum of computers and the distant vibration of the facility's life. "Support systems. First contact," Marcus whispered. "Hostile first contact," Harrison corrected. "They've been broadcasting demands for our surrender for the past hour, along with detailed descriptions of what they plan to do to our population." Her jaw tightened. "It's not pleasant." Elena stared at the tactical display, her mind racing. 300 ships. The entire Earth Defense Force consisted of maybe 30 vessels, and most of those were little more than armed transports. "How long until the prototype is ready for deployment?" Harrison asked quietly. "It's ready now," Elena admitted. "But Admiral, the test runs showed it works perfectly." "I've read the reports, Doctor. The question isn't whether it can fight. The question is whether it should." Elena understood the implication. The Prometheus represented more than just advanced technology. It represented a fundamental shift in humanity's approach to warfare. Once deployed, there would be no going back. Earth would have announced itself to the galaxy not as a peaceful species seeking contact, but as something far more dangerous. "Who's going to pilot it?" Marcus asked. "Captain Sarah Chen," Harrison replied. "She's our best pilot, and she volunteered for the neural interface procedure last month. The ship's AI has bonded with her consciousness. They're effectively a single entity now." Elena shuddered. The neural bonding process was necessary for the ship's exotic systems to function, but it changed the pilot in ways they didn't fully understand. Sarah Chen was no longer entirely human, just as the Prometheus was no longer entirely machine. "Doctor," Harrison's voice softened slightly, "I need your recommendation. Do we deploy?" Elena looked at the approaching alien fleet, then at the prototype ship that represented humanity's darkest ingenuity. The choice seemed obvious, but the implications terrified her. "Admiral, if we use the Prometheus, we won't just be defending Earth. We'll be making a statement to the entire galaxy. We'll be telling every species out there that humanity isn't prey. And if we don't use it," Elena gestured at the tactical display, "then in 14 hours humanity becomes extinct." Harrison nodded grimly. "Prep the ship, Doctor. It's time to see what we've really built." As alarms began blaring throughout the facility, Elena watched technicians swarm over the Prometheus. In a few hours, Captain Sarah Chen would take humanity's most advanced warship into battle against an enemy they'd never seen, using technology they barely understood. The thought that kept running through her mind wasn't whether they would win. It was whether they would still be human afterward. Chapter 3. The bonding captain Sarah Chen stood before the Prometheus, in her neural interface suit, trying to quiet the storm of thoughts in her mind. The ship loomed above her, its hull rippling with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Final systems check complete, Dr. Vasquez announced over the intercom. All readings nominal. Sarah almost laughed. Nominal. As if anything about this situation could be called normal. The neural interface headset felt cold against her skin. In 30 minutes, she would cease to be entirely human. The ship's AI would merge with her consciousness, creating something new. Something that could process information at quantum speeds and think in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Captain Chen, Admiral Harrison approached, her footsteps echoing in the vast hangar. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Sarah admitted honestly. "But ready." That was a lie, and they both knew it. No one could be ready for what was coming. But Sarah had volunteered anyway, because someone had to. Because Earth needed a defender, and she was the only pilot whose neural patterns were compatible with the ship's AI. "I've been thinking about what we're doing here," Sarah continued, checking her equipment one final time. "About what this ship represents. And we've built something that doesn't just destroy enemies, it makes them irrelevant. It operates outside the normal rules of space and time." Sarah looked up at the ship's flowing hull. "When I merge with the AI, I won't just be fighting those aliens, I'll be becoming something they can't comprehend." Harrison nodded grimly. "The question is, will you still be you?" Sarah had wondered. The same thing during the long nights leading up to this moment. The neural bonding process was irreversible. Even if she survived the battle, she would never again be fully human. The AI's patterns would remain woven through her consciousness, forever. "Captain," Dr. Webb's voice crackled through the comm system. "We're detecting movement from the alien fleet. They've altered course and increased speed. New arrival time, 8 hours. 8 hours. Sarah felt her pulse quicken despite her training. "Time to go," Harrison said quietly. Sarah walked to the boarding ramp, each step feeling heavier than the last. At the top, she turned back to look at the scientists and technicians who had made this moment possible. Most of them looked terrified. A few looked proud. All of them looked like they were watching the end of something. The Prometheus interior defied conventional ship design. Corridors curved in impossible directions. Walls seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. The bridge was a sphere, of flowing metal and crystalline displays that responded to thought rather than touch. Sarah settled into the pilot's chair, which molded itself to her body like living tissue. Neural interface cables snaked out to connect with her suit. As each connection engaged, she felt her consciousness expanding. First came the ship's sensors. Suddenly, she could perceive the entire solar system simultaneously. She felt the gravitational pull of Jupiter, the solar wind from the sun, the quantum fluctuations in empty space itself. Then came the ship's memory banks. Centuries of theoretical physics flooded her mind. Technologies that bent the laws of reality. Weapons that could unmake matter at the subatomic level. Finally, the AI itself made contact. "Hello, Sarah." The voice spoke directly into her thoughts, neither male nor female, carrying harmonics that human ears couldn't detect. "I am Prometheus. We are about to become something new together." Sarah felt her individual consciousness merging with the artificial intelligence. Her human memories remained, but they were now part of a larger gestalt. She could think in parallel processing streams, calculate probability matrices spanning thousands of variables, and perceive time as a navigable dimension. "How do you feel?" Prometheus asked. Sarah took inventory of her new existence. She was still herself, but more, enhanced, expanded beyond the limitations of biological cognition. "Different," she replied through their shared consciousness. "But ready." The merger was complete. Sarah Chen was no longer merely human, just as Prometheus was no longer merely artificial. They had become something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. "Shall we introduce ourselves to our visitors?" Prometheus suggested, a note of anticipation rippling through their shared thoughts. Sarah smiled with lips that could now perceive electromagnetic radiation across 17 different spectrums. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of." Duras, Prometheus phased out of normal space-time and began its journey toward the alien fleet. Behind them, Earth waited in ignorance of the battle about to unfold. Ahead lay 300 ships crewed by beings who had never encountered anything like what humanity had just unleashed. As they approached the edge of the solar system, Sarah felt a moment of regret for what was about to happen. The aliens probably thought they were conducting a routine conquest. They had no way of knowing they were about to face Earth's answer to the question of survival. "Are you having second thoughts?" Prometheus asked, sensing her emotional state. "No," Sarah replied, watching the alien fleet grow larger on their sensors. "I'm having first thoughts. This is the first time in human history we're not the underdogs." "And how does that feel?" Sarah considered the question as the Prometheus prepared to demonstrate humanity's new place in the galactic order. "It feels like evolution." Chapter 4. The reckoning Admiral Thex watched his fleet die ship by ship, and for the first time, in his 40-year military career, he felt something approaching panic. The humans weren't supposed to be capable of this. Intelligence reports had been clear. Earth species had only recently achieved interstellar flight. Their weapons were crude projectile systems and primitive energy beams. They should have surrendered immediately upon seeing the Empire's overwhelming force. Instead, they had sent a single ship that was methodically annihilating 3 centuries of Imperial naval supremacy. "Status report," Thex commanded, his voice barely steady. 160 ships destroyed, sir," his aide replied, her scales having shifted to the pale yellow of terror. "No confirmed hits on the enemy vessel. Our weapons appear to be completely ineffective." Thex studied the tactical display. The remaining ships were scattered across half the solar system, attempting every evasive maneuver in the Imperial playbook. It didn't matter. The human ship, the Prometheus, according to their intercepted communications, continued its work with mechanical precision. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." On screen, the main display showed a human female, but something was wrong with her appearance. Her eyes held too much intelligence, as if she was processing information faster than any biological mind should be capable of. When she spoke, her words carried harmonics that suggested she wasn't entirely organic anymore. "Admiral Thex, my name is Captain Sarah Chen. I want you to understand what's happening here." Thex activated his response channel. "You're committing genocide against an Imperial fleet. That's what's happening." "No," Chen replied calmly. "We're giving you a demonstration. Earth tried peaceful contact for 5 years after we achieved faster-than-light travel. We sent diplomatic signals to every star system within 50 light-years. Your empire ignored us completely. The transmission continued as another Imperial ship died in silent fire. Then you arrived with conquest fleets demanding our surrender. You broadcast detailed plans for enslaving our population. You made humanity's choice for us." Thex felt cold understanding creep up his spine. "What choice?" "Whether to remain prey or become predators." Chen's enhanced features showed no emotion. "You assumed we were limited by the technology you observed. You were wrong." The tactical display updated. Only 90 ships remained of his original 300. "This is impossible," Thex muttered. "No species advances this quickly. Not from chemical rockets to whatever you've become." "Admiral, let me explain something about humans," Chen said, her voice carrying new harmonics as the ship's AI contributed to the conversation. "We're persistence hunters. When faced with a stronger opponent, we don't give up. We adapt. We innovate. We become whatever we need to become to survive." 70 ships left. 5 years ago, we were exploring our own solar system with primitive vessels. Today, I am merged with an artificial intelligence, piloting a ship that exists partially outside normal space-time. wielding weapons that ignore the laws of physics as you understand them. 50 ships. We didn't choose to become this. You forced us to evolve. And evolution, Admiral, is rarely kind to those who can't adapt. Thex realized with growing horror that the human wasn't boasting, she was explaining. Like a scientist describing an experiment to colleagues, the destruction of his fleet wasn't personal. It was simply data. "What do you want?" he asked desperately. "I want you to go home," Chen replied. "I want you to tell your empire that Earth is not available for conquest. I want you to spread the word to every species in this galaxy that humanity has claimed its place among the stars. 25 ships remained. And if we refuse?" Chen's expression shifted, becoming something that was no longer entirely human. When she spoke, it was with the voice of the ship's AI as well as her own. "Then you become a cautionary tale." The final 24 ships of Admiral Thex's fleet exploded simultaneously. The Conquest's edge hung alone in space, surrounded by expanding debris clouds that had once been the Empire's most powerful battle group. "You killed them all," Thex whispered. "I spared you," Chen corrected. "You have a message to deliver. I suggest you deliver it accurately." The transmission ended, leaving Thex alone with the aftermath of humanity's introduction to galactic politics. Around him, his bridge crew sat in stunned silence, staring at sensor readings that made no sense according to everything they'd believed about warfare and technology. "Navigator," Thex said finally, "set course for home." "Sir, shouldn't we?" "There is no we anymore," Thex interrupted. "There's one surviving ship carrying one message back to the Empire. We tell them what happened here. We tell them humanity is not to be approached by military vessels." As the Conquest's edge jumped to hyperspace, carrying news that would reshape the Empire's understanding of the galaxy, the Prometheus phased back into normal space near Earth. Sarah Chen felt the neural interface beginning to separate her consciousness from the ship's AI, though she knew the connection would never be completely severed. She would forever carry a piece of Prometheus within her mind, just as the AI would carry her human perspectives. "It's done," she thought to her artificial partner. "Yes," Prometheus replied, "though I suspect this is only the beginning." Sarah nodded, watching Earth grow larger on their approach vector. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. There would be consequences. Other species would come, either seeking alliance or attempting preemptive strikes. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, Earth was safe. Today, humanity had proven that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest advantage of all. As the Prometheus entered Earth's atmosphere, Sarah wondered what her fellow humans would think when they learned what she had become. Would they see her as a hero who had saved their world, or as something alien wearing a human face? Time would tell. But for now, it was enough that humanity would have time to find out. Epilogue. The New Paradigm. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her laboratory, reviewing reports that would have seemed like science fiction just a year ago. The galactic response to humanity's demonstration had been swift and varied. 7 different species had requested formal diplomatic contact. 4 others had increased their military spending dramatically. The Zephyrian Empire had recalled all exploration fleets and begun negotiating non-aggression pacts with every known species. "How's Captain Chen adapting?" Admiral Harrison asked, joining Elena at the observation window. Below them, the Prometheus sat in its hangar, hull rippling with patterns that had become more complex since the battle. The ship was learning, growing, becoming something beyond its original design parameters. "She's different," Elena admitted. "Still human, but enhanced, in ways we're only beginning to understand. The neural bonding process was more successful than we ever imagined, but it's also irreversible. She can no longer exist without the ship's AI, and vice versa." "Is she happy?" Elena considered the question. She'd asked Sarah the same thing just yesterday. She says she's complete, that she finally understands what she was meant to become. Elena paused. "I think she's telling the truth. The scary part is, I think she's right." Harrison nodded toward a new addition to the hangar complex. Construction teams were working around the clock to build similar facilities. The president approved funding for 12 more ships. 12 more like the Prometheus? Improved versions. We're calling them the Titan class. Each one will have a bonded pilot AI pair. Each one will be capable of what Captain Chen accomplished. Elena felt a chill despite the laboratory's controlled temperature. Humanity was preparing for a galaxy that now knew Earth existed, but in doing so, they were changing themselves at a fundamental level. Admiral, are we still human if we keep going down this path? Harrison was quiet for a long moment, watching the construction crews work. Dr. Vasquez, evolution doesn't ask permission. When our ancestors left the trees, they stopped being what they were and became something new. When they developed agriculture, they changed again. When they built cities, developed writing, split the atom, each step was a departure from what came before. She turned to face Elena directly. What happened 3 months ago wasn't just humanity's first victory against alien invaders. It was our species taking the next step in its development. The galaxy forced us to evolve, and we did. Elena nodded, understanding but not entirely comfortable with the implications. Humanity was spreading across space now, no longer confined to Earth. They were building ships that bent reality, training pilots who merged with artificial intelligences, and preparing for conflicts on a scale their ancestors never imagined. Status report on the other colonial expeditions? Harrison asked. Successful beyond projections. The colony ships reached their destinations without incident. 3 new worlds are already established, with more planned. Elena pulled up a stellar map. We're expanding faster than any species in recorded galactic history. It was true. Within months of the Battle of Sol, humanity had launched an unprecedented expansion program. Ships carrying millions of colonists had spread across dozens of star systems, establishing new worlds with a speed that amazed even Earth's scientists. And the other species' reactions? Mixed. Some are impressed. Others are terrified. The Altarian Confederation has requested technical exchanges. The Rigel Collective is building defensive installations throughout their territory. Elena highlighted several star systems on the map. Everyone's treating us as a major power now. Harrison smiled grimly. Good. Respect is better than sympathy. As they watched, Captain Chen emerged from the Prometheus. Even at a distance, Elena could see the changes in her walk, her posture, her mannerisms. She moved with the fluid precision of someone who existed partially outside normal physical limitations. She's heading to the briefing room, Elena observed. Another diplomatic mission? The hegemony of stars has requested a demonstration of our capabilities. Non-hostile. They want to understand what they're dealing with before establishing formal relations. Elena nodded. It had become a pattern. Species throughout the galaxy wanted to see the Prometheus in action, to understand the new reality of humanity's presence among the stars. Each demonstration reinforced the message that Earth was no longer a primitive backwater. Admiral, Elena said quietly, sometimes I wonder if we've created something we can't control. Dr. Vasquez, we've created something we don't need to control. Captain Chen and the Prometheus represent humanity's answer to the question of survival in a hostile galaxy. They've given us the time and space to grow into whatever we're meant to become. As if responding to their conversation, the Prometheus began its pre-flight sequence. Its hull shifted through patterns that hurt to look at directly, reality bending around the ship as it prepared to phase into dimensional space. Where is she going this time? Elena asked. The Vegan system. Their government wants to discuss mutual defense treaties. Harrison checked her chronometer. If she leaves now, she'll be back by Thursday. Elena almost laughed. Casual interstellar travel, diplomatic missions to alien worlds. Humanity had gone from barely reaching their own moon to negotiating with galactic powers in less than a decade. The Prometheus phased out of normal space, leaving only a slight distortion in the air where it had been. Do you ever miss the old days? Elena asked. When our biggest worry was whether we'd find microbial life on Mars? Admiral Harrison smiled. Dr. Vasquez, we've gone from asking, are we alone, to proving we are never alone again. I'd call that progress. Elena watched the construction crews continue their work on the new Titan-class ships. In a few months, humanity would have an entire fleet of vessels like the Prometheus. Earth would be defended by ships that existed partially outside reality, crewed by beings who were no longer entirely human. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she found herself feeling something unexpected. Pride. Humanity had been challenged by the galaxy's predators and had responded not with surrender, but with evolution. They had faced extinction and chosen transformation instead. As she looked up at the stars visible through the laboratory's reinforced windows, Elena realized that somewhere out there, other species were looking at the same stars and wondering what humanity would do next. She smiled. They would find out soon enough. After all, humans were persistence hunters, and they had just claimed the entire galaxy as their hunting ground. The end.